Orphan joins random event, discovers it's a reunion of her unknown relatives. The words glowed on the community bulletin board like a prophecy Mia Foster couldn't yet understand, her fingers tracing over the simple flyer announcing a weekend gathering at Silver Lake Park. Something about the hand-drawn border of intertwined trees pulled at a memory she couldn't quite place, a sensation like déjà vu without the image to accompany it. The April wind cut through her thin jacket as she tore off one of the small paper tabs with the date and location. 25 years old, with no family and a studio apartment that echoed with emptiness, what did she have to lose by attending a stranger's gathering? The word reunion wasn't on the flyer, just Silver Lake Annual Spring Celebration, all welcome. All welcome. 3 syllables that rarely applied to someone who had aged out of the foster system with nothing but a backpack of possessions and a heart full of questions. The bus ride to Silver Lake Park took 47 minutes. Mia counted each one, her stomach tightening as the urban landscape gradually surrendered to clusters of oak trees and glimpses of water through the new spring leaves. She'd worn her best outfit, dark jeans without frays, a soft blue sweater she'd splurged on during a rare moment of self-indulgence, boots polished the night before, while she sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, wondering why she was going to such efforts for a community event where she knew no one. But something had called her. The same something that sometimes woke her from dreams of faces she couldn't quite see, of laughter she couldn't quite hear. The park sprawled larger than Mia had imagined, sunlight dappling through oak and maple trees onto picnic tables adorned with mason jars of wildflowers. A hand-painted banner reading Silver Lake Celebration fluttered between 2 trees. About 30 people milled about, setting up food, arranging chairs, children darting between adults with the familiarity of those who belong somewhere. Mia froze at the edge of the gathering, hands deep in her pockets, the weight of her outsider status suddenly as heavy as the backpack she'd carried between foster homes. She shouldn't have come. What had she been thinking? That she would magically find connection among strangers at a park? You look a little lost. The voice came warm and low from her left. Mia turned to find an older woman with silver-threaded auburn hair and eyes so deeply brown they were almost black. Something about those eyes made Mia's chest tighten. "I saw the flyer in town," Mia explained, already stepping backward. "It said all welcome, but this looks private." The woman's smile deepened, creating a map of lines around her eyes. "It's not private at all. I'm Eleanor. Who might you be?" "Mia. Mia Foster." The surname still felt like something borrowed rather than owned, assigned by a system rather than inheritance. Eleanor's hand trembled slightly as she extended it. "Foster," she repeated, something unreadable crossing her expression. "What a lovely name." Mia took her hand, surprised by the strength in the older woman's grip. "It's not really my name. I mean, it is, but I was in the system. Foster care." The familiar explanation that always created that look of awkward sympathy in strangers' eyes. But Eleanor's eyes didn't fill with pity. Instead, something else flickered there. Something Mia couldn't identify. "Well, Mia Foster, you've come to the right place. We're just setting up. Would you help me arrange these photos on the memory table?" Before Mia could formulate a reason to leave, she found herself following Eleanor to a long table covered with a quilt made of mismatched squares of fabric. On it lay scattered photographs, old sepia-toned images alongside faded color prints from the 80s and 90s. "We do this every year," Eleanor explained, carefully arranging frames. "Everyone brings photos of loved ones, especially those who can't be with us anymore." "I don't have any photos to contribute," Mia said, the familiar hollow ache expanding in her chest. Eleanor paused, those deep brown eyes finding Mia's again. "That's all right. Sometimes we come to remember, and sometimes we come to create new memories worth remembering." As people continued arriving, bringing dishes of food and calling greetings to one another, Mia found herself absorbed in the photos on the memory table. Faces from different eras stared back at her, men in military uniforms, women in high-waisted jeans and big hair, children squinting against summer suns from decades past. One photo in particular caught her eye, a young woman standing beside a lake, arms wrapped around herself as though cold despite the visible summer backdrop. Her hair, dark and wavy like Mia's own, was caught in a breeze. She was looking away from the camera, her profile somehow familiar in a way Mia couldn't place. "That's Iris," came Eleanor's voice so close behind Mia that she startled. She'd be about 45 now. "Would be?" Mia asked, unable to look away from the photograph. "She passed 23 years ago." My niece. Eleanor's voice carried a careful neutrality that didn't match the grief shadowing her eyes. Do you see something in that photo that caught your attention? Mia's fingers hovered over the image, not quite touching. She just looks… I don't know. Something about her. A tall man with salt and pepper hair approached, carrying a tray of deviled eggs. Eleanor, are you subjecting this young lady to the family photo gallery already? His smile was kind, but his eyes, the same deep brown as Eleanor's, widened slightly when they landed on Mia. Thomas, this is Mia. She joined us after seeing the flyer in town. Thomas's hand extended, warm and firm. Welcome, Mia. Any friend of Eleanor's is family to us. The word family hung in the air between them like a soap bubble, beautiful and fragile and impossible for Mia to touch without destroying. I'm not really… I just saw the flyer. The clarification felt important, a shield against disappointment. Thomas nodded, but his eyes lingered on her face a moment too long. Well, sometimes the best connections are the unexpected ones. Come, let me introduce you to some people. What had begun as an impulsive visit to a stranger's gathering transformed, hour by hour, into something Mia could never have anticipated. Thomas introduced her to person after person, each one greeting her with a warmth that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. There was Sarah, a pediatric nurse with Eleanor's auburn hair and a crooked smile. Michael, a carpenter with hands perpetually stained with wood polish and a laugh that came from deep in his chest. Twins Emily and Emma, college students with identical freckles scattered across their noses. Mia found herself seated at a picnic table between Eleanor and Thomas's wife, Catherine, a soft-spoken woman who kept filling Mia's plate with homemade dishes. You must try the peach cobbler, Catherine insisted, passing a bowl with ice cream already melting on top. It's from Eleanor's recipe, though none of us make it quite like she does. It was my mother's recipe originally, Eleanor corrected, passed down through generations. Mia took a bite, and the flavor, cinnamon and brown sugar and perfectly ripe peaches, unlocked something deep in her memory. A kitchen she couldn't picture, a woman's hands she couldn't see, this exact taste on a summer evening long forgotten. This tastes like… Mia began, then stopped, the memory slipping away like water through cupped hands. Like what, dear? Eleanor prompted. Nothing. It's delicious. Thank you. As afternoon mellowed toward evening, string lights flickered to life in the trees. Someone produced a guitar, and voices rose in folk songs Mia didn't know but found herself swaying to anyway. She hadn't meant to stay this long, hadn't meant to feel this strange blend of comfort and unease, belonging and alienation. She helped clear plates, wash dishes at the outdoor spigot, fold tablecloths, tasks that made her temporarily useful, tasks that postponed the inevitable moment when she'd need to leave, return to her empty apartment, and make sense of why this gathering of strangers had affected her so deeply. The sky had deepened to indigo when Thomas approached, 2 mugs of hot chocolate in hand. It gets chilly once the sun sets, he explained, passing her a mug. Eleanor mentioned you take the bus. The last one left half an hour ago. Mia's stomach dropped. Are you sure? He nodded, concern creasing his brow. I'd be happy to drive you home. Or… He hesitated, looking over to where Eleanor sat with several women around a small fire pit. Or you could stay at Eleanor's tonight. She has plenty of room and I know she'd be glad for the company. I can't impose like that. I'm a complete stranger. Thomas's expression shifted, something complicated passing behind his eyes. You don't feel like a stranger, Mia. Not to any of us. He glanced toward Eleanor again. Especially not to her? Before Mia could process this, Eleanor herself approached, her cardigan pulled tight against the evening chill. Thomas is right about the buses, she said. And it would be no imposition at all if you stayed with me tonight. In fact, I was hoping you might. There was something in Eleanor's voice, a vulnerability, a hope, that made refusal impossible. Are you sure? Eleanor's smile trembled slightly at the edges. More sure than I've been about anything in a very long time. The drive to Eleanor's house took them away from the lake, up winding roads that climbed into the hills overlooking the town. Mia sat in the passenger seat of Eleanor's old Volvo, watching the headlights cut through darkness, questions tumbling through her mind but none making it to her lips. Eleanor's home emerged from the darkness like something from a fairy tale, a small cottage with a steep roof, gardens visible even in the dim glow of porch lights, wind chimes singing softly in the night breeze. It's beautiful, Mia said as they walked up the stone path. It's home. Eleanor replied simply, unlocking the front door. Inside was just as Mia might have imagined. Bookshelves lining walls, a patchwork of rugs over hardwood floors, plants thriving in every corner. The scent of lavender and old books enveloped her as she stepped inside. "The guest room is this way," Eleanor said, leading Mia down a short hallway. "Though I suppose I should call it something else since it rarely hosts actual guests." The room was small but perfect. A window seat overlooking the garden, a full bed with a handmade quilt, watercolor paintings of landscapes adorning pale blue walls. "The bathroom is just across the hall," Eleanor continued. "You'll find towels in the cabinet, and I'll bring you something to sleep in." Left alone, Mia moved to the window seat, drawing her knees to her chest as she peered out at the silver-dappled garden below. The day felt dreamlike now, the chance discovery of a flyer, the gathering that wasn't at all what she'd expected, these people who had welcomed her with such inexplicable warmth. Eleanor returned with a folded nightgown and a small wooden box. "I thought you might be comfortable in this," she said, placing the nightgown on the bed. Her fingers lingered on the wooden box. "And I wanted to show you something, if you don't mind." Mia nodded, watching as Eleanor sat beside her on the window seat and carefully opened the box. Inside lay a small collection of treasures: pressed flowers, a smooth stone, a tiny silver locket. Eleanor lifted the locket, holding it in her palm as though weighing something far heavier than metal. "This belonged to my niece, Iris, the woman in the photograph you were drawn to today." She opened the locket to reveal a tiny picture inside, a baby, perhaps 6 months old, dark wisps of hair and eyes squeezed shut in laughter. "Her daughter," Eleanor said softly. Something cold and electric shot through Mia's body. "I didn't know she had a child." "Few people did." Eleanor's eyes remained fixed on the tiny photograph. Iris was young, only 22. The baby's father wasn't in the picture. When Iris died, her voice caught. There was a car accident, winter roads. The baby survived with barely a scratch, but Iris was gone instantly. Mia's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "What happened to the child?" Eleanor closed the locket gently. "The state took her. There was confusion about the father, about family rights. By the time we fought through the legal system, she had been placed in foster care, and then we lost track of her." The world seemed to tilt beneath Mia, the comfortable room suddenly spinning. "What was her name?" she whispered, though something in her already knew the answer. "Amelia?" Eleanor said, her voice breaking on the syllables. "We called her Mia." The truth collapsed the space between them like a bridge giving way. 23 years of separation, of questions without answers, of an emptiness Mia had carried her entire life, all crystallized in this moment, in this room, with this woman who shared her blood. "You recognized me," Mia said, the realization dawning. "At the park, you knew who I was." Eleanor's hands trembled as they reached for Mia's, her touch tentative as though Mia might vanish if grasped too firmly. "I wasn't certain. Not at first. But your eyes, they're Iris's eyes exactly. And when you said your name," a tear slipped down Eleanor's cheek. "We've been looking for you for 23 years, Mia. Every spring gathering, every Silver Lake celebration, it was always for you, always in hopes you might find your way back to us." The flyer, the hand-drawn border of intertwined trees that had called to her, the celebration that felt both foreign and familiar, all of it, a beacon she hadn't known she was searching for. "I don't understand," Mia whispered, her own tears falling now. "How did you find me?" "We didn't," Eleanor said simply. "You found us, just as we always hoped you would." That night, Mia lay awake in the guest room, her mother's childhood room, Eleanor had told her, staring at the ceiling as moonlight painted silver patterns across it. The magnitude of the day's revelation was too immense to process, too profound to embrace all at once. She had family, a grandmother-aunt in Eleanor, cousins in Thomas and Sarah and the others she'd met today, a history, a lineage, connections that extended backwards and forwards through time, and a mother, Iris, who had held her once, loved her, whose blood ran in her veins. Sleep came eventually, deep and dreamless, the sleep of someone who has finally found safe harbor after a lifetime adrift. Morning broke with golden light streaming through the window and the scent of coffee and something sweet baking. Mia found Eleanor in the kitchen, rolling out dough on a floured countertop. "Cinnamon rolls?" Eleanor explained, her eyes still carrying wonder as they took in Mia standing there. "They were your mother's favorite breakfast. I make them every Sunday. Can I help?" Mia asked, and the simple question contained multitudes. "Can I learn your traditions? Can I be part of this family? Can I belong here in this kitchen with you? Eleanor's smile was answer enough. She handed Mia a knife to cut the dough into spirals, standing close beside her, occasionally touching her elbow or shoulder, as though reassuring herself that Mia was real, was here. I called Thomas this morning, Eleanor said as they worked side by side. He's gathering everyone for lunch today. If that's not too much, she added quickly. I understand if you need time. Mia considered this, the overwhelming prospect of meeting an entire extended family who had been searching for her, who knew more about her origins than she did herself. I'd like that, she said finally. I want to know them. All of them. Eleanor's hand covered hers, flower against flower. They've waited their whole lives to know you too. The morning unfolded in revelations both profound and mundane. Over coffee and still warm cinnamon rolls, Eleanor opened albums filled with photographs. Iris as a child, as a teenager, as a young woman expecting a baby. Mia's grandparents, long deceased but preserved in images of summer picnics and Christmas mornings. Cousins and aunts and uncles, each face a puzzle piece fitting into the empty space Mia had carried within her. Your mother played the piano, Eleanor said, pointing to a photo of teenage Iris at a recital. Beautifully. And she could draw anything she saw, just look at it once and recreate it perfectly on paper. Mia thought of her own sketchbooks, filled with drawings she'd never shown anyone. Another connection, another thread tying her to the mother she couldn't remember. By noon, they were preparing to leave for Thomas's house, where the family was gathering. Mia paused in the hallway, catching sight of herself in an antique mirror, her dark hair, her eyes that were apparently so like her mother's, the face that was uniquely her own but carried echoes of the photographs she'd just studied. For the first time in her life, she could see herself as part of a continuum, a story with chapters before her birth and, hopefully, many after today. Ready? Eleanor asked gently. Mia nodded, taking her great-aunt's hand. I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. Thomas's home buzzed with the energy of barely contained excitement. Cars lined the driveway and spilled onto the street, family members having driven from neighboring towns the moment they'd received his call. The air smelled of too many perfumes, too many dishes brought to share, too much joy concentrated in too small a space. Mia stood in the entryway, Eleanor's steadying hand at her elbow, as faces turned toward her one by one, conversations trailing off, expressions transforming from curiosity to recognition to wonder. Everyone, Thomas said, his voice carrying through the sudden silence. I'd like you to meet Mia, Iris's daughter, our Amelia. For one suspended moment, no one moved. Then Sarah, the pediatric nurse Mia had met yesterday, stepped forward with tears streaming down her face. I was 16 when you were born, she said, voice breaking. I held you in the hospital. You had the tiniest fingernails I'd ever seen. Others followed. Michael, who had been Iris's best friend since childhood. Catherine, who had helped search through legal records for years, trying to trace Mia's path through the system. The twins, Emily and Emma, who, though younger than Mia, had grown up hearing stories about their long-lost cousin. Each person carried a piece of Mia's history, each embrace restored a fragment of what had been taken from her. They brought forward small treasures, a baby blanket Iris had crocheted, a children's book inscribed with Mia's name, a recording of Iris playing piano when she was pregnant. We never stopped looking, Thomas told her as they sat in his sunroom, surrounded by family bringing plates of food, asking gentle questions, simply wanting to be near. Eleanor especially. She put flyers up every year, checked records, hired investigators when we could afford it. The flyers, Mia said, remembering what had drawn her to Silver Lake Park in the first place. You've been putting them up for years. Eleanor nodded, her hand never far from Mia's. 23 years. Same weekend, same message. All welcome. But why not say it was a family reunion? Why not mention you were looking for someone? Thomas and Eleanor exchanged glances. We tried that the first few years, Thomas explained. But the authorities warned us about creating false hopes or making claims without legal standing. And then as time passed, it became almost superstitious. The same message, the same weekend, the same hope. We believed that if you were meant to find us, you would, Eleanor said simply. And you did. As afternoon deepened toward evening, Mia found herself in a quiet moment with Sarah in Thomas's backyard, sitting on a garden bench beneath flowering trees. I have a question, Mia said hesitantly. About my father. Does anyone know who he was? Sarah tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, her expression careful. Iris never told anyone directly. She was very private about it. There were rumors, of course, a professor at her university, someone older. But she wanted to handle it herself. Do you think he knew about me? I don't know, Sarah admitted. Iris was determined to raise you on her own, with our family's support. She was so excited about being your mother, Mia. Those 6 months she had with you, I've never seen her happier. 6 months. Such a small measure of time, yet it represented the entirety of what Mia had experienced of her mother's love. Somehow knowing Iris had cherished those months made the loss both sharper and more bearable. The day extended into evening, no one willing to leave, everyone finding reasons to stay just a little longer. Stories flowed like water, funny memories of Iris, family traditions Mia had never known, anecdotes that placed her within a tapestry of connections she was only beginning to understand. When exhaustion finally overtook excitement, Thomas offered his guest room to Mia and Eleanor. "Stay," he said simply. "Be here with us." That night, lying in yet another bed that belonged to her newfound family, Mia felt the first tentative roots of belonging begin to take hold. The hole inside her, the empty space she'd carried her entire life, wasn't gone. Perhaps it never would be entirely. But it was changing shape, filling with names and faces and stories and love. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, as she might have done if she'd had the chance to raise Mia herself. "Are you all right? It's been overwhelming, I know." "It's been everything," Mia corrected gently. "Everything I never knew I was missing." Eleanor's fingers brushed Mia's hair from her forehead, the touch feather-light. "When we lost you, it was like losing Iris twice. The searching kept us going, kept us hoping. But I never imagined," her voice caught, "I never truly believed I would sit here like this, beside you, knowing you were safe and found." "I was never lost," Mia said, the realization dawning as she spoke it. "I just didn't know where home was." In the days that followed, Mia's life transformed with the velocity of a dream, but the substance of awakening. She called her workplace, requesting vacation time she'd never used. She returned to her apartment only to pack a bag of essentials, the bare space suddenly stark in its emptiness, not a home at all, but merely a place she'd been existing. Eleanor's cottage became her anchor, the spare room rapidly transforming into Mia's space. Photos of Iris appeared on the nightstand. Mia's few books joined Eleanor's extensive collection on the shelves. Her clothing hung in a closet next to winter coats and summer dresses that Eleanor insisted she borrow, try on, keep if she liked them. The family surrounded her like a tide, flowing in and out of Eleanor's cottage bearing casseroles and photo albums and stories. They took her to the lake where Iris's photograph had been taken, showing her the tree her mother had carved her initials into as a teenager. They brought her to the small memorial garden planted after Iris's death, where spring flowers now bloomed in riotous color. "She would have been so proud of you," Eleanor said as they stood among the flowers, "just for surviving, for becoming who you are." "I wish I could remember her," Mia admitted, the ache of this particular loss sharper now that she knew so much about the mother she'd had and lost. "You carry her with you," Eleanor said, touching Mia's cheek, "in ways you don't even realize." A week after the Silver Lake celebration, Eleanor presented Mia with a legal document, her expression both tentative and determined. "This isn't to pressure you," she began, setting the papers on the kitchen table between them. "And nothing needs to be decided quickly. But I want you to know it's an option." Mia looked down at the paperwork, a deed transfer form for Eleanor's cottage, with Mia's name listed as the recipient. "Eleanor, I can't accept this." "It's not a gift so much as a return," Eleanor insisted. "This house was meant to be Iris's one day and then yours. I'm just expediting the timeline a bit." Her smile wavered. "I'm not young, Mia. I want to know that when I'm gone, you'll have a home that's truly yours. A place in this world that belongs to you, that connects you to your mother, to your history." Mia's throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. Say you'll consider staying, not just for a visit, but for good. There are colleges nearby where you could finish your degree. Jobs in town, family all around you. What if it doesn't work out?" Mia asked, voicing the fear that had shadowed her growing happiness. "What if I'm not who you all hoped I'd be?" Eleanor's hand covered hers, warm and sure. "You're exactly who we hoped you'd be because you're yourself. That's all any of us ever wanted, just to find you, to know you, to be part of your life in whatever way you'll allow." That evening, Mia sat on the porch swing, watching twilight settle over Eleanor's garden, Perhaps her garden someday, if she found the courage to accept such a gift, to trust in such permanence. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, asking if she'd like to come for dinner tomorrow. Another from Thomas, sending a photo of an old piano he'd found that needed restoration, wondering if Mia might want it since she'd mentioned wanting to learn, like her mother. Messages of belonging, of future, of family. She looked up at the darkening sky, at the first stars appearing like distant beacons. Somewhere in that vastness, perhaps her mother could see her now, found at last, surrounded by love, beginning to heal. "I made it, Mom," she whispered to the evening air. "I found my way home." Inside, Eleanor was making tea, the kettle's whistle a gentle summons to warmth and conversation, and another evening of stories that would stitch Mia more firmly into the tapestry of her newfound family. Mia Foster, no longer just a name assigned by a system, but an identity connected to generations before and after her, rose from the swing and walked toward the golden light spilling from the cottage windows. Toward Eleanor, toward family, toward a future filled with the love she had always deserved. The door stood open, waiting for her to step through, and she did.